Hello, I'm glad to see you.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Coltrane is one of the most respected voices in boxing social media, known for building a passionate community of true fights fans through his platform Guard Your Grill TV and Guard Your Grill Boxing. He has created a space where boxing history, debate, analysis, and respect for the sport of come together. His content reflects deep knowledge of the sweet science and love for both past legends and modern champions. Today, it's a honor to welcome a creator who has earned the attention of boxing fans worldwide. Worldwide. Coltrane. First of all,
Sorry.
thank you for taking the time to do this interview. I respect the work you have done for boxing fans all around the world. You have built a real community through your content. Let's start from the beginning. Can you introduce yourself and tell the audience who Coltrane is?
Well, thank you for having me on. How do you say your name?
Can you introduce yourself and tell the audience who Coltrane is?
All right. So I'm Coltrane, Guard Your Girl Boxing. Um, the boxing group chat, I like to call it. It started out as a podcast. Well, it wasn't called a podcast. It was a YouTube channel. Many moons ago, it was YouTube. No podcasts. So I transitioned to social media. Well, it was always YouTube is technically social media, but um the traditional sense of social media, Instagram. Uh, I transitioned over there from YouTube. Started off, with me and four other gentlemen. We started just to kind of set an environment and a culture. Rather if you're in a barbershop or in a workplace, at a playground, just a casual setting to talk about boxing because boxing in America really didn't have a voice or a platform like it once did many, many moons ago.
Every every great journey starts with a first spark. Many boxing fans remember the exact moment they fell in love with the sport. Sometimes it's one fight, one boxer, or one memory. I'd love to know what started it all for you. What first made you fall in love with boxing?
So as you know, I'm from Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is a boxing mecca. It's a boxing hotbed. So boxing is a part of the culture. So it's always boxing, boxing. Rather if you play fight in the streets, there was boxing gyms literally like within 3 miles or kilometers, as you guys say, radius. There was boxing gyms everywhere. So my father also was big into boxing. Back Four Kings during the Four Kings era, I think a lot of us got into it from that. That's like around my age. Mike Tyson obviously was a big attraction back then. But I think like growing up in a city like Philly, where boxing is just a staple, that's kind of like where a lot of my passion came from. And again, like I mentioned, my father who, always watched boxing. So as a little kid, I gravitated to boxing. I never liked wrestling. Wrestling was big here in America. I don't know over in the Ukraine if wrestling is big. I mean, not like amateur wrestling. I mean, like the the wrestling for theatrics, professional wrestling. I never was into that. Most of my companions, my peers, they love wrestling. I always loved boxing. When I was a little kid, I wanted to box, but I didn't want to get hit because my favorite fighters, like Pernell Whitaker, James Toney's, they didn't get hit. So that's who I wanted to model my fight game after. So that didn't work for me. So I had to try something else, So here I am, talking about the sport from afar.
Your Instagram, your Instagram page is very popular. You created a page that many boxing fans know and respect today. But every successful platform begins with one decision. At the start, nobody knows how far it can go. I'm curious about that first step. When did you decide to create your boxing Instagram page?
Well, like I said, it's me and four other gentlemen. Shout out to Big Mike, Sleep, Rada, Docs, and myself. It started with YouTube. That's how I started talking to the world. I didn't realize at the time because I think living in America, we can have such a parochial type of mindset where you forget about the rest of the world. I just thought that it was just people here follow boxing like that. I mean, of course, I knew about boxers from other places, but until I got on YouTube, that's the cool thing about social media is that it can connect us from very far, but brings us so close. And when I got on YouTube, when we was doing the YouTube show, it was really popular. It took off because it wasn't a lot of shows covering boxing back then. But we started the YouTube channel in 2007. So it was Guard Your Grill Boxing and maybe 3 other boxing channels. Maybe it was more, but I know like when you went into the search engine of YouTube, which they now call it was technically always called the algorithm, but the algorithms back then took you to like 4 boxing channels, and we was a part of that 4. So as time went on, people said you got to come to Instagram. I didn't know nothing about Instagram. I'm just wasn't a big social media person. Outside of me talking about boxing, I'm kind of like private with my life. So I didn't really want to be on social media, but everybody was like, this is where you got to go to connect. And I went from doing video to writing again, because I always like to write. So now I get a chance to write about something I really love, and that's boxing. So the writing aspect of it drew me back to doing this again. And let me get another shout out to Roberto Flack. He works with us as well. He's a part of the team. And he was on social media too, because I got to make sure I shout out certain people here that was very instrumental into the growth of where we're at now. But Rada, he does a lot of the we do like what is it? Fight Mood that he does on Friday night. We try to have some fun with it. But for the most part, I try to keep it strictly boxing. I don't have a lot of fun activities on my page. We're lighthearted, but we're about the integrity of the sport. So that's why I created this page and this platform. My page is really for purists. It's not for casual. I don't mind casual fans coming on here. They're more than welcome. But my page is really for the purists of the sport. So that was the first step, is to get the ears and the eyes of the purists.
What was the main idea behind starting your YouTube channel?
Well, like I said, in America, they just stopped talking about boxing. They didn't talk about it as much anymore. It was like the NBA, the NFL, those are like the 2 majors where you have baseball, you have hockey, but basketball and football is like the main sports that people gravitate to. Now, people like the big names like Roy Jones, obviously, Floyd Mayweather, the De La Hoyas, Trinidad's. But outside of that, they just didn't talk about boxing. So I used to go on boxing websites, Max Boxing, BoxingScene.com. There was another website called Doghouse Boxing. So Doghouse Boxing had a chat room. So this is before going on social media. You went inside like forums and chats, and you would talk to people. Now, you don't know where these people are from. You don't know who you're talking to. There's no pictures to match these people. So it was just like these chat rooms where I could actually talk to people like myself because it was hard to have dialogue with people who love the sport the way you love it. So by me going on these websites back then, I was like, oh, there's a whole like, this parallel utopia of a universe that exists of boxing degenerates like myself. So I was like, why can't I just start a YouTube channel? Because YouTube became popular. People was doing cooking channels and movie reviews and music reviews. I'm like, well, why can't we do boxing? So I pitched it to my neighbor, who's a very good friend of mine, Sleep. And I pitched it to him because he was more technical with cameras and producing and stuff. I said, we should start a boxing channel on YouTube. And we just started it, and people just started gravitating to it.
Wow, you did a great job. Growth
Thank you.
on
Thank you.
social media is never guaranteed. Many talented creators work hard but never reach a wide audience. Your pages built a strong following over time. I wonder if you saw that coming. Did you expect your social media pages to grow too much?
To be honest, you know what's funny? I've never ever asked anybody to subscribe to my channel. I don't have anything against people that do that, to each his own. But for me, I always try to run my page like a library. I know libraries, I don't know how libraries are in the Ukraine, but here in America, it's free. Like anybody can go to the library and retrieve information. It's a community, it's open to the public. So I kind of wanted to run my page like that, where it's just open information that's always here. I would never charge nobody to come on my page. I don't want to do fans only, none of that fancy stuff. I just want a place where people can talk about boxing, argue, have fun, and just be around like-minded people like themselves that love the sport.
Most people only see success, but they don't see
Yes.
the hard moments in the early stages. Building something
No, they don't.
from zero takes patience and sacrifice. What were the
But
biggest what were the biggest struggle in the beginning?
so the biggest struggle in the beginning was we all had to be in the same room to do these videos, because you see how you and I are talking now, we couldn't, the technology wasn't advanced enough for everybody to be in the same room. So when I was first doing this, it was me and four other individuals. So we all had to meet at one place. It had to be the right time. And then there's the whole thing of getting it right. So sometimes we would shoot shows and got to do it over and over or have it edited. Like when you finish this video, you can go into a program or software and edit it. But back then, you had to like manually like edit videos. So that was the most frustrating part. And it's like you said, like people don't see that part. It takes a lot of time. I'm always looking for new ideas to talk about because I don't want to bore people with the same things. So I'm always trying to like think outside the box. I got a great team of young boxing fans that I talk to every day. They help keep me innovative. I mean, keep an innovative perspective, going into the page. So that helps out a lot. So yeah, lot of this, a lot of mental gymnastics.
Loyal supporters are the foundation of every great brand. Numbers are one thing, but real supporters are different. They stay with you and believe in your vision. I'd like to know how that started for you. How did you get your first loyal followers?
I think what happens, when we first started, as I mentioned to you, I made sure everybody felt like they was a part of what I'm doing. I never try to be way up here. I want to be down here with everybody. I think sometimes people get on these platforms and their heads swell up like a balloon and they start floating away from getting the attention and the likes. I never looked at it. I don't look at it like that. I look at it more as, like I said, it's a community setting where, for me, this is not only something I like to do, but it's therapeutic for me. Like boxing for me is therapy. It's the most, probably one of the most therapeutic things I can do. Watching old fights, talking to you right now is therapeutic. Talking about boxing to me is therapy. So for me, I try to make it like a therapeutic setting where people can come and kind of bury the ashes of whatever they got going on in their personal life and come to my page or my platform and talk about something that we collectively love together, and that's boxing. So people respect that. And I think most importantly, people can tell when you're genuinely sincere about something, because some people do this just to do it. But I think when you're genuinely sincere about something, people gravitate to that.
The boxing world has many pages, channels, and opinions.
Yeah.
Yet some
Yes.
creators stand out and create their own identity. Your platform clearly connected with fans in a unique way. Let's talk about what separates you. What makes your content different from other boxing pages?
I think that people respect honesty. I try to be very transparent with people. Like, I don't cover women's boxing on my page. And it's not that I have anything against women boxing. It's just, for me, it's just something I don't know a lot about. And it's something that I never gravitated to. So people respect when you're honest about stuff like that. Like, you got some people that'll put up women's boxing, but they never watch it. Anything that I put on my page, I have knowledge of. I don't put stuff on my page that I can't speak about. So I try to talk, I try to speak to people again with it coming from a very genuine perspective, because people respect honesty and candor. Because, like you said, it's so much fluff on social media. People are just putting up content just to get clicks. Where me, like, I really care what I'm talking about, like, and people can feel that. And boxing fans, it's hard because although there's a lot of great boxing pages out there, but there's also a lot of clickbait out there. With me, anything that I talk about, I feel strong about it. And even if you don't agree with it, you have to respect it, because I'm being fair with my opinion.
How much time do you spend daily working on content?
It's crazy because, so somebody asked me, do I use Chat GPT? And I said, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what Chat GPT was, because they couldn't believe that I could write so much in one day. Sometimes I was putting up 4 and 5 posts a day. And now I'm doing like 3 posts a day, depending on what's going on. But it's what I do now. If I come up with an idea, I'll write it down in my notes, and I'll send like a text message to myself. I'll write notes about a post that I may want to do. If I see something on TV, like I was watching, and it is just crazy how you draw ideas from the most peculiar places. I was watching this documentary on sloth bears, like these bears, I forget what country they're in. And they were saying, like, they have to deal with such tough competition, where grizzly bears I always thought was the toughest bears that existed. And here it is, they don't really have a lot of competition. So that it's funny, that turned into a boxing post, because I said, well, you have some fighters that may be better than other fighters, but they're not fighting the best competition. So you never know where you're going to draw information from. So I'm always watching stuff, reading stuff that has nothing to do with boxing, because I know it'll translate into and correlate into what I'm doing. So I watch a lot of documentaries. Yeah, a lot of different war history. Yep, all that stuff.
What motivates you to keep going every day?
What motivates me?
Yes,
Yeah, what motivates me is people like yourself. You're in a whole nother region, and the mere fact that you and I are connecting because of one thing, and that's boxing. So for me, that's extremely motivating to me. The fact that I can have a conversation with somebody, had it not been for this sport, you and I might not never eat. Our paths would never probably cross. So that's what motivates me, that I can connect with so many different people because boxing is truly global, and that's what keeps me going.
sometimes one moment can change everything for a creator. One post, one video, or one idea can open your doors. Many successful pages have that turning point. I'm curious if you had one too. Which post or video changed your page the most?
Yeah, you know what's funny that you asked that, and it always happened from something you would least expect. So I had put a page up. I put a post up with Timothy Bradley getting knocked down against Kendall Holt, and that was my highest viewed page. Now you got to remember, Canelo, Mayweather, Mike Tyson. I didn't have big boxers post. I mean, big time boxers that I post on my page. But yet, this one clip, which is literally, I think, like 12 seconds, if that. Tim Bradley gets knocked down and he gets up, but it doesn't show him winning the fight. He just gets up, but it's a brutal knockdown. That post right there got reshared, recycled so many times. But again, you just never know where it's going to come from. So it ended up making it like on like the Ring magazine page. They reposted it. A bunch of other big networks were, pages out there reposted it. So, like you said, you just never know. And when I put that post up, it was more so to show about a jab. If you throw a lazy jab, how I can be countered. It was debatable if it was a lazy jab or not. My personal opinion, it was. And Tim Bradley got countered off that. So that's the only reason why I posted it. I was trying to like illustrate a point, and here it is. It went global, well, viral, as they say. Yeah.
A lot of young boxing fans dream of starting their own pages today. They want to grow, build community, and share their passion. What advice would you give to someone starting boxing page today, or maybe YouTube channel?
I think that I think for the most part, you gotta find your truth, what it is you want to cover. Don't be biased. That's a big problem that people are biased. Like I always tell people, you can disagree. I have no problem. We're not going to always agree. But one thing you can never call me is one dimensional or biased or partial. Sure, there's styles that I like better than other fighters, but I have a large variety of fighters that I put on my page from all over, different styles, different colors, different looks. So I would advise anybody that's starting their page, like just be, just be open. I mean, be fair, be balanced. If you do want a page, if you're from Mexico and you want to promote Mexican fighter, you should probably lead with that and stay with that and just be honest and let people know this is what your page is about. So I would definitely give that advice. Like just be definitive about what exactly it is you're trying to cover.
Boxing debates are part of the culture of this sport. Fans love comparing eras, styles, and legends. Some debates never end, and that's what makes them fun. You have seen this world closely for years. Why do you think boxing fans love debates so much?
I think that boxing fans are just happy to have somebody to argue with and talk to. If you put a post up, right, and I'm just gonna throw a random fight out here, if I put a post up about Ricardo Lopez versus Rosendo Alvarez, that's not an argument you can get into with just anybody. So if you find somebody that knows about those two fighters and know about that fight, you're just so happy that somebody knows who both of those guys are, and B, now you can debate with somebody. So a lot of time fans, I don't think they it's like unintentional that they have these debates. It's just that they're so excited, they don't know how to channel that excitement. So they just automatically just start debating with people. And also, boxing is very territorial. You have people from different regions. You're from the Ukraine. You guys got two that are really big fighters out there that are very polarized. And so anytime Lomachenko name comes up or Usyk, it creates a buzz. People want to argue, debate, bring up old eras. So but it's all in good nature and good fun. I think that you can't take it personal, because we'll debate and then we'll agree on something else.
Many people talk about talent, but consistency is often what creates real success. Your YouTube and Instagram were a success. How important is consistency in building a channel?
I think consistency is key. You asked me, how often do I post? And because it's constantly the needle is constantly moving on social media, so you can't really stay idle. You have to constantly put out content that is relative. That's one. If that's what your page is about, some people just put out classic videos. They don't talk about what's relevant. My page, I stay current, and I like to go back in the archives and talk about old fighters, old fights. So I kind of got both going on. And the only reason why I have both, because I was originally going to go to classic content, but I have a lot of young fans, young fighters, young bloggers that follow my page. So, I keep it balanced, and I want to just stay relevant to the time because that help promotes the sport. If we all leave and only talk about old fights, that's not going to help promote the new guys, and that doesn't help the sport. So it's really important for me to stay current. So whenever news happen, now you got to be careful because with boxing, some of these sources is, it has to be, you got to make sure it's from a reliable source. I'm sending messages to people like, hey, is this true? Is this accurate? Before I put it on my page. So, yeah.
From the outside, content creation can look simple, but growing a platform and keeping attention are two different battles. Success requires more than just posting videos. I'd like your honest opinion on this challenge. What is harder, creating content or keeping an audience?
I think the audience part is the most challenging because you don't really know who you're. It's like weird because you don't really know your audience when you're doing. I kind of got a grasp now, but I'm more so speaking in the beginning. You don't really know who your audience is because people come and they go. But just because people are not commenting, don't mean they're not watching. That's what I had to learn. Like, oh, you are watching, you're just not commenting because everybody don't want to debate because sometimes somebody want to give an opinion, but they don't want to be attacked. So, they'll say, hey, I'm watching. I don't comment as much, but I'm still watching. So I think that knowing your audience and having that rapport with them, even if you don't talk to them every day, you can write a post and be speaking directly to 1,000 people, but only make it seem like you're only speaking to one person. So I just keeping a strong rapport with your keyword, your target audience. You got to know who your audience is, and once you know who they are, just try to keep your content geared towards those people so you can keep them.
Next, I want to hear your opinion about the legends of the past. I will watch this interview many times. Your opinion is valuable. You are a cool boxing expert.
Thank you.
Why is Muhammad Ali still one of the greatest icons in boxing history?
Well, Muhammad Ali, and I'm glad you used the word icon because there's a difference of being a great fighter and being an icon. Icon means that you did something iconic, right? There's a lot of great fighters, but they haven't done iconical things. So iconical things mean, you did some other things beyond just boxing. Muhammad Ali was truly a man of the people. There was a time in America where rights wasn't civil here. So and it was called the civil rights. People didn't have civil rights; they weren't equal. And Muhammad Ali stood up and spoke for civil rights. He spoke on the behalf of war against other countries. He visited other countries, and he was a truly what you call a Renaissance man that represented all these different things and overcame all these obstacles. And he was really good in the boxing ring. So you bring all these together, and you bring and to answer your question, you bring forward the iconical figure, which is Muhammad Ali, that will never go away because he stood for so much more than just boxing. Now, does that make him the greatest fighter? I think this is where people get it, misconstrued. That doesn't mean he's the greatest boxer of all time. But as far as being the most iconical, yes, Muhammad Ali is definitely the most iconical fighter of all time, like you said, because he just resonated over so many time periods, and he'll never go away. And he can fight.
What made Ali special inside the ring?
Well, he was a heavyweight that could move like Lomachenko. Just think about how little Lomachenko is, little guy. Muhammad Ali's like 6 foot, whatever he is, big heavyweight. Now he's not big as Tyson Fury and those guys, but he still was, a heavyweight, and he was light on his feet. He had a beautiful jab. He can counter pull, pull, counter pull. These are things that you see from little fighters. So to see a heavyweight doing the things he was doing at that period of time, now guys are it's a lot more frequent that guys are light on their feet, but for that period of time, for Ali to be doing what he was doing, being so light on his feet and being so agile as a heavyweight was phenomenal. And he had blazing speed to go with it.
Do you think Ali would dominate in today's heavyweight era?
Yeah. I try to be fair with the errors. I know a lot of people that's from different eras. They'll say, "Oh, they would kill these guys today." I always believe like great fighters will adjust to any era. So if these guys today had to fight back then, they would have to adjust to that style. But to answer your question, I don't know dominate, but I think he would definitely reign supreme and be victorious. Like there's not too many people I think Tyson Fury would probably give him a good fight, but I'm taking Ali in that fight. Deontay Wilder, I'm taking Ali. Usyk would probably give him, I think, the best fight because he's so elusive but I would probably go with Ali.
Mike Tyson also is one of the greatest boxers of all time. What was Mike Tyson's most dangerous weapon in the ring?
Well, Tyson had a lot of weapons. He had power in both. He could knock you out with either hand. You know, um, These guys was the difference of fighters back then. I think today they were taught how to use their lead hand a lot better than guys today. But Tyson, obviously he used to throw the lead hook to the body. You know, that was probably his most dangerous weapon. Used to hear Kevin Rooney. There's videos out there. I posted a few videos on my page, and he's like, throw the seven. The seven. The punch counts. There's a variations of punch counts, but when I grew up, the seven was the lead. That was the lead. That was the lead hook to the body. The seven. He said, throw the seven. Throw the seven. So the lead hook to the body, I would say, would probably be his most dangerous weapon.
Prime Tyson or Prime Ali, who wins and why?
Oh, the uppercut too, Mike Tyson uppercut. He threw that well inside. Ali, I got Muhammad Ali over Mike Tyson. Yeah, yeah. Too much movement. I think he would outsmart Mike Tyson, and he would get in his head. Tyson was very emotional. Ali was really good. People don't realize when he fought George Foreman was at that time more talented than Muhammad. He was younger, not saying more time, more athletic, but he got in George Foreman's head the whole time they was in Africa. Got in his head, and that's important. Yes.
Lennox Lewis, also great champion, also legend.
Very good.
How
Very good.
underrated is Lennox Lewis in all-time heavyweight rankings?
He's criminally underrated. He's very underrated. I don't think people understand. And I think because what happened was he came, the timing of his reign was a little tricky because he kind of came, even though they're the same age, he became really popular and established when Tyson wasn't around. So I think people hold that against him, but he fought way better competition than Mike Tyson. He had to fight way better competition, and Lennox, because he was knocked out. I think that's what makes his story really interesting is that he avenges his losses and he knocks guys out. You may knock him out, but then in a rematch he's going to knock you out. But Lennox pairing with Emmanuel Stewart, he became a force to be reckoned with, and it's a shame because to your point, I think he's very underrated because we don't talk about him enough when we talk about all-time great heavyweights.
Would Lennox Lewis beat every heavyweight from any era? Ali, Tyson, Usyk, Fury, Rocky Marciano, and others.
No, because I don't know if he could be Larry Holmes. I don't know if he could be Larry Holmes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that Lennox had problems with guys that could fight on it. It's funny because even though Lennox developed a really good inside fighting game, but I think he was vulnerable inside somewhat. And I see that being a problem for him. Him and Ali is an interesting fight, but I think again I would favor Ali. Usyk is the one fighter that I think you could put him. People think because Usyk moves around and he makes things look theatrical that are very complicated. He's a very difficult style. And I just think fighting that style is not easy. You have to crowd it. You got to smother it some kind of way, fight him on it. This is why I always say Usyk, to beat Usyk, you have to be like from the 90s era heavyweights. Or you may be over the 70s, somewhere in there, where those guys are really good inside fighters. But Usyk is a guy that I think that it could be, a 50-50 fight for some of these old legends. But him and Lennox would have been a good fight. That's actually a post. You gave me an idea. I might post that.
Rocky Marciano remained undefeated, undisputed champion. Record 49-0, crazy record. What made Rocky Marciano so hard to beat?
I think so. is so Marciano, he was the undersized heavyweight for that time period. Um, the heavyweight division at the time he was, a heavyweight champion. He went undefeated. I don't want to use the word careful matchmaking, because he did beat Joe Louis, but it was like Joe Louis on the tail end of his career. And look, to be fair to Marciano, boxing is all about timing. We talked about Mike Tyson not being around, and guys was able to have success in the heavyweight division. It's just about timing. And I just thought Rocky Marciano, the timing of when he was the heavyweight champion, he was able to achieve a lot of success without fighting certain guys, again, like not fighting, Joe Louis, in his respective prime. But that doesn't take away from him. But he was very, like, I think Usyk is even bigger than he is. He's bigger than him. Like, yeah, because Usyk's like 6'3". That's just funny. He's still Usyk, if he fought in the 90s, would be considered a big heavyweight. That's the irony of that, because he's actually 6'3". It's just that Tyson Fury and Joshua, these guys are mammoth and so tall. He doesn't seem as tall, but Rocky Marciano was really small. Like, I don't even know if he would be a heavyweight today.
Did you watch the first fight between Rocky Marciano versus Ezra Charles? Who really got
Yes.
there?
Yeah, it's boxing again. It's funny because I put a post up today about this close decisions. It's so subjective. I actually thought Ezra Charles won the fight, but a lot of people thought Rocky Marciano won. Max Kellerman has this line. He says, "Which fighter would you rather be?" At the end of each round. And for me, I said Ezra Charles. So that's how I kind of scored the fight. And I got to watch it again. I haven't watched it in a while, but I would say Ezra Charles for me personally.
Where do you rank Evander Holyfield among the greatest heavyweights ever?
Yeah, he's Holyfield definitely in my top 10 holy heavyweights all time. It's funny because him and Usyk got similar stories. They're former cruiserweights that went to a mammoth of a division and really had a lot of success against really, really great competition. Holyfield was so tough. I mean, gosh, I don't think I've ever really seen this man hurt. And he was hit with like bombs from people. But he's one of the toughest. Marvin Hagler and Evander Holyfield are the two toughest fighters I've ever seen in my life. Like, far as I can just withstand punishment, these guys can eat bombs and give it right back to you. But Holyfield definitely, what he did to Mike Tyson twice. That's just like unheard of. He fought Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis. I mean, come on. Michael Moore, like the list goes on. Holyfield fought everybody.
Was Holyfield's heart his greatest quality?
It's hard. It's hard. Yes.
Why is Sugar Ray Robinson often called the greatest boxer ever?
Because Ray Robinson, we always talk about back foot, lead foot, lateral movement. That guy could dominate you in any direction. No matter what direction he was going in, he could dominate you. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to have power going backwards, because you like taking your momentum away from you going backwards. He just had it all. He could just put it all together. He wasn't the most defensive-minded fighter, but offensively, one of the greatest offensive fighters of all time. He went from welterweight all the way up to light heavyweight, and had it not been for a heat situation, because it was so hot, he would have probably been a light heavyweight champion as well. Not probably, would have been from welterweight. Like, that's a very difficult thing to do.
What skills of Robinson would dominate even today?
Oh, you said what, fighters or what?
In fight.
Yeah. It was, oh, Ray Robinson would, yeah, these guys today, like, see, people don't understand that boxing is the one's probably the only sport where you can go back that many years and the skills look more prominent. Guys are faster now, they're bigger, but the skills are the skills aren't they're not there as like they were back then. Those guys were way more fundamentally sound. Only person I think would beat him out of this current crop of welterweights is I'm not beat him, but give him a good run is Crawford. That's it. I think Bud could fight in any era as well.
Sugar Ray Leonard versus Sugar Ray
Yeah.
Robinson. Dream fight
Whew.
prediction.
Whew. Man, that's a tough one.
Prime versus Prime.
That's that's a really, really, really tough fight to judge. It might end in a draw because they
Very
both
close
now
fight.
they both are have very unique qualities. And Ray Leonard, it's tough because Ray Leonard's the type of fighter, once he tastes his own blood, he kind of forgets about everything else and just go for it all. And Ray Robinson is already kind of fighting that way. I think Ray Leonard is definitely faster than Ray Robinson. He's quicker. Um, Ray Robinson is definitely more. They're both aggressive. I don't know. That's a tough fight. It's a tough fight. I'll say a draw.
I agree with you.
Yeah, a draw.
What made Sugar Ray Leonard such a superstar?
He's the perfect. I always say he is. If you was going into a lab, he's like a robot. If you was building a fighter, he's perfect. He perfect height, perfect build, perfect torso. He's not overly muscular. He has the perfect chisel, speed, beautiful punch combinations, good range and distance and control, good movement. He's perfect. And he has punching abilities. So he could do everything. The thing about Ray Leonard, he could have been Floyd Mayweather if he wanted to. The difference is he fought in a time and an era. He was fighting against so many other elite great fighters. It was just hard, I guess, to have that type of style against those types. Also, he's another one that had a lot of that. You know, he's funny because he gets this bad stigmatism of being this like, you know, safety first type of fighter. But most of his big fights, he let it all out on the line, with the exception of the second Duran fight and a Hagler fight. He stood right in front of everybody and fought him.
Ezra Charles is one of those names true boxing historians always respect. Many casual fans may not fully understand how great he really was. He fought in an era of unbelievable competition and toughness. His legacy deserves more attention whenever boxing greatness is discussed. How great was Ezra Charles really?
Evan Charles is one of these guys like James Toney watches Ezra Charles, just so to illustrate this point here and give some perspective and insight. Again, because these guys were so fundamentally sound, they could punch. They was good at bending that. Because back then, a lot of guys they bend at the waist. That was kind of how they didn't really go in a roll as much. There was a lot of bending at the waist, and Ezra Charles, and he was a puncher. And you'll hear James Toney talk about him learning his defense from Ezra Charles. He was a really underrated fighter. Like, to your point, it's a shame because there's video out there, but there's not enough where people can gravitate and watch. Because back then a lot of the fights was on radio; they wasn't on TV.
So there's not a whole lot of stuff out there, but um, I wish more younger fighters watch fighters from back then, because they can learn so much from them. But yeah, Ezra Charles was a phenomenal fighter.
Why don't enough fans talk about Ezra Charles today?
I think because what happens here, and I think it's throughout, but especially in American boxing history, they only tell you about the same names, you know, Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali. They don't even talk about Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes is one of the longest reigning heavyweight champions of all time. They don't even talk about him. And this man was a heavyweight champion all the way up into like he was almost 40 years old. But I think that we romanticize with the same fighters. That's why like my page, I try to institute and bring up older fighters and guys that you wouldn't really know too much about that were really good. But I just don't think that a lot of people take the time and do the research. They just go with what people tell them, and they just like, okay, well, that was it. These are only heavyweights. I'll just talk about them.
Gary Greb remains one of the most mysterious and fascinating figures in boxing history. So much of his greatness comes from stories, records, and the respect of those who studied him. He fought in an
Right.
incredibly demanding era. His name still carries legendary status. How legendary was Gary Greb considering the era he fought in?
So and it's funny because here it is as another guy that, like you said, you listen to guys like Eddie Futch talk about Harold Graham. I learned this is what's crazy about this, right? Because there was no internet back when I like, was really doing my studies in boxing, like reading Ring Mag. Really, you had Ring magazine. That was it. But I would watch like old tapes of fights, and they would have the trainers talking. And I was watching like it might have been a Mike McCollum fight. I forget what fight, but Eddie Futch was talking about Harold Graham and how he used to like to watch him shadow box. I mean, excuse me. He talked about people watching him shadow box, not Eddie Futch himself. He said he was such a great shadow boxer that people would rather watch him shadow box than watch him fight. But they said, my page is about slick technical boxing. That's kind of the boxing that I gravitate to. They say he was one of the most technical, slick fighters that unfortunately there's no video where we can really see how good he was. But you listen to anybody from Emmanuel Stewart, I talked about Eddie Futch, the list goes on of like these old school trainer guys that has so many great things to say about him and how they borrowed some of his methods and instituted that into their training regiments.
Boxing history has many
Yeah.
superstars, but also has
Yes.
forgotten giants. Some names
Yeah.
don't get enough spotlight simply because time moved on, yet their achievements remain incredible. Harry Greb may be one of the biggest examples of that. Is Harry Greb one of the most forgotten all-time greats?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They don't, these guys, these people that talk about boxing that's on TV now, they don't mention no boxers from the past. You when HBO did boxing, again, you had Emmanuel Stewart on the telecast. So he would always make references to these old time fighters. They don't do that anymore. Bill Miller, who trained James Toney, these old school guys, they made you talked about Ezra Charles. They made James Toney watch film study of these guys.
Carlos Monson rules the middleweight division with authority and
Yeah.
calm confidence. He was feared, respected, and extremely effective. His reign is still discussed among serious fans today. Dominance like that is never accidental. What made Carlos Monzon such a dominant middleweight champion?
Carlos Monzon, and I always talk about less is more. That's one of my mantras on my page. Less is more. Extremely technically sound. Again, we talk about having a strong lead hand, a good steadfast jab, with nice combinations to follow. Good punch placement, beautiful punch placement. Well, I mean, how many title defenses? 15. I know Bernard Hopkins ended up breaking his record, and then Joe Calzaghe, I think, broke Bernard's. I forget, but for a long period of time, he had the record for the middleweight champion for the most title defenses. Until Bernard broke the record, Bernard Hopkins.
Could Carlos Monzon beat Marvin Hagler?
Yeah. Would you say?
Could Carlos Monzon beat Marvin Hagler?
I don't think he could beat Hagler. He would have beat a lot of other guys, but you see to beat Hagler, it takes extraordinary to beat Hagler. You had to be extremely extraordinary, and Hagler was just a different breed of a fighter. It was very difficult to beat. He was very underrated athletically too. He's another guy that doesn't get credit for his athleticism because he could throw the gazelle hook. That's an athletic shot. That's not like a flat-footed fighter shot. That's athleticism.
Marvin Hagler was a fighter who demanded respect every second of every round. He combined power, pressure, durability, and intelligence. Many opponents know they were entering war when facing him. That kind of presence is rare. Why was Marvin Hagler so feared in his prime?
To your point, you got to fight all 3 minutes. Most fighters, they don't like fighting all 3 minutes. A lot of people don't know that, but a lot of guys, they don't want to fight all 3 minutes. Some guys want to fight 1 minute. Some guys might want to fight 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Hagler went all 3 minutes. It was uncomfortable. Wasn't easy to deal with. Again, he had this herky-jerky up and down motion. His head is constantly moving. So his defense is not like Floyd Mayweather or Pernell Whitaker or anything like that, but he didn't give you like a easy look just to land upon. So that was frustrating. And then it's the pressure. It's the footwork. He's very underrated when it came to footwork. And then it's the constant pressure. It's not an easy thing to deal with. And like you said, you gotta fight all 3 minutes of the round. It's hard. It's not easy to do.
Some dream fights feel impossible to predict because both men were complete champions. It's a true historian's matchup. Hagler versus Gennady Gennadievich Golovkin, Triple G. Who wins and why?
Triple G. Yeah. I think Hagler wins the fight, but I do think it's a closer fight than people would think it would be. I give Triple G a lot more credit than probably a lot of American pundits do. I think what happened with Triple G, two things that happened with him. Abel Sanchez, they completely changed his style. If you watch Triple G as an amateur, he fought nothing like how he fought as a pro. He fought more like Dmitry Bivol, more of that Soviet style footwork, moving around, bending at the waist, blocking shots with the backhand. He fought more elusive. But I think when he came to America, they realized, well, this style won't translate, so we have to give him more of a come straight forward, like Mexican type style where, we're going to overwhelm you with punches and power. Not that he wasn't a great fighter, because I think he was. But I think that The Triple G from the amateurs, had they kept that style, he could have gave Hagler a good fight. But this Triple G right here, the one that was in the pros, the Triple G had a good chin, like good chin. Yeah, so I've never seen this man tired, and I heard, but I got to go with Hagler in that fight. I just think Hagler had, more things he could do. I saw Canelo like, out time and, kind of outbox. Styles make fights, but even though I thought Triple G won the first fight, but still Canelo fought a lot better than what I thought he did. But I like Triple G. Excuse me, I like Hagler in that fight. But I think it's a close fight, though.
Yes, yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
If old legends had modern social media, some of them would become global superstars overnight. Personality today can travel as fast as talent. Boxing history had many characters larger than life. It's interesting to imagine them in today's world. In your opinion, which legend from the past would attract the biggest social media following today?
Well, definitely Muhammad Ali. But he was social media before there was even social media. So I'm not going to use him because he just people gravitated to him. But Hector Camacho, if he fought today, he would be bigger than life. Yeah. Like, because he just had this way of promoting himself. He was very charismatic. He was just a showman. And somebody like him today would just be Nassim Hamed. It's another one. You know, these guys was just they just knew how to put a show on. I'm sure there's others, but those are the two that came right off, the top of my head.
Greatness is not only physical talent. Mental strength often decides the toughest
Absolutely.
moment in boxing. Which boxer had the best mentality ever?
Mentally, all time,
Yes, mentality ever.
it's hard to put just one on there. My top, the two, and it's funny because I posted this. I said the three most mentally tough fighters that I ever saw was Floyd Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins, and Hagler. Those three, because those three guys, they're never out of shape, always in fighting shape. See, the thing about boxing, to your point about the mental aspect, this is a 12-month sport. It's no days off. If you want to be elite and special, you have to dedicate and devote your body and your mind and your soul. It's a way of life. It's not a sport for 12 months. And those three fighters right there, you can call them 2 weeks before fight and they'll be ready to go because they're always ready and they're always in shape. And the mental discipline I've never seen either one of them in a fight where they lost it mentally, where they unraveled, they fell apart. Andre Ward too. I'll put him in there too.
Great.
Bud Crawford. Yeah, Bud Crawford. Just mentally tough guys, but all time, that's who I go with.
Great. Top three.
Because those guys back then were doing a lot of things. They was drinking, and some of them was doing drugs. Some guys that we really liked was doing some bad things to their body when they wasn't boxing. Those guys, they don't drink alcohol, nothing.
Which boxer has had the best jab ever?
Ooh,
Maybe
for me,
Larry Holmes?
Larry Holmes, easy. That's easy for me. And the reason why is Larry Holmes, the only fighter I believe could literally dominate a fight equally to his talent, I'm not talking about just against anybody, but Larry Holmes, and it was a lot of variations of it. It was like a laser, and it had such conviction behind it. Yeah. Ali had a really good jab too, but Larry Holmes, he lived inside of that jab.
Which boxer had the best defense ever? Maybe Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah. For me, I gotta go with Pernell Whitaker.
Ooh.
Yeah, Pernell, I think, had the best. It's really between Pernell, James Toney, and Mayweather, between those three, all time.
Which
Pernell
boxer?
was a lot. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Continue.
What I was going to say was all three of them had different styles of defenses. Floyd, obviously, Floyd and James Toney both use a shell, right? The difference is James Toney shell is standing right in front of you. I'm going to use the shell and I'm going to counter off the shell. Mayweather shell when you got him on the ropes mostly. That's when he brought his shell out the most. And Floyd was a lot more elusive where he could move around defensively. Pernell Whitaker was doing things defensively you'll never ever see again from a human being. This kid Ben Whitaker, who I like, but that's not what Pernell was actually doing. He's emulating some things, but Pernell defense was off the charts. You know, it was just off the charts. Like the way he could bend his body up and down, and and here's a guy that didn't need a shell because his reflexes was so great. Now over years he would lose some of the reflexes, and he got caught with some shots. But you saw him do some things you'll never see replicated again, probably from another human being, not in this lifetime anyway. Go ahead. Yep.
Having a great chin changes everything in boxing. It gives confidence, breaks opponents mentally, and allows fighters to survive storms. Some legends seemed impossible to hurt. Durability is one of the most respected traits in the sport. Which boxer had the best chin ever?
It's funny because it's like Hagler comes up again. It's like he can be in a lot of these conversations, but look, we talked about Triple G. He's never been hurt, never been down. Canelo has a really good chin, but all time I gotta go with Hagler. Just yet again, yeah, back to Marvin Hagler. Those bombs that he got hit, I don't think there's a fighter today that could take those shots from Tommy Hearns. I don't care that he was a former welterweight. Tommy Hearns is 6'3". Like, he's not really a welterweight. And he fought, I believe, at junior middleweight before they fought that fight. But nobody looks at Tommy Hearns as a true legitimate welterweight. Those shots that he caught Hagler with, to this day, I don't know how he took them. Hearns broke his hand from hitting Hagler.
Which boxer had the highest ring IQ ever? In my
I gotta go with Floyd
opinion, this
Mayweather.
is Floyd.
Yeah, I gotta go with Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, I gotta go with Floyd. Yeah. I gotta go with Floyd.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which heavyweight era was the strongest ever?
So this is a controversial take. I think the 90s don't get enough credit because they don't have the big names. I personally think the 90s was listen, man, you have Burt Cooper, guys like Michael Moore, Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis, even guys like David Tua that never won a world title. Ray Mercer. these guys, oh man, these was all inside fighters, by the way. Now, obviously, you had the 70s era with Kenny Norton, George Foreman, obviously Ali was there. You know, the list goes on of great heavyweights from the 70s. But I feel like some of that was during the tail end of Ali career. Then Foreman kind of came on later. Then him and Larry Holmes never fought each other. So it's like a lot of, and Larry Holmes is like in a weird situation because he's part of the 70s and 80s. But for me personally, because I watched it, so I'm a little biased. I think the 90s heavyweight era don't get enough credit. And I feel like that was the best heavyweight because you had a lot of polarizing heavyweights and they all end up fighting each other for the most part, except for Tyson never fought Riddick Bowe and he fought Lennox Lewis late, but yeah.
Why do fans always compare eras in boxing?
What did they say? Comparison is the biggest thief of joy. Something how that saying goes, like making comparison robs us all of joy. I just think everybody think the era they grew up in was better than the era that we're currently in, and that's why I was telling you, like for my page, I try to be balanced, and show respect and credence to the fighters that's out today. Like there's some fans that don't want to give Floyd Mayweather his respect as being like one of the smartest fighters of all times. Like I don't know how anybody as a fan of the sport and a historian of the sport cannot think that he's not one of the smartest fighters of all time, one of the best defensive fighters of all time. You know, but people just like staying stuck in their era, so to speak.
Every now and then, a modern fighter reminds people of the old school warriors. Sometimes it is the discipline, style, toughness, or mentality. Fans instantly notice when someone carries that classic spirit. Those comparisons are always interesting. What current boxer reminds you most of the old school legends?
Right, fighting today.
Yes.
I think. All right, so I think you got guys like let me see. Let me just go through each weight class. You got guys like Boots Ennis, who's out of Philadelphia. You know, there's some flashes of Rory Jones there. Um, Terry Norris. I see a lot of different fighters in Boots because he's extremely athletic. He's fast. You got Shakur Stevenson, who I think is the smartest boxer probably in all of boxing right now. His IQ is off the charts. He don't have the same athletic prowess as Mayweather. Thank God he doesn't, because he would really be a force to be reckoned with. But his IQ of what he has, that's like really like fighters of yesteryear and old school fight. He understands how to control range and distance. He's masterful at that. And that's like an old school tactic, you know, using your lead hand, you know, as a blindfold. You know, this is like an old school tactic that a lot of fighters used to use. So definitely him. Usyk is a kind of an anomaly because there are fighters, you know, like what's my man name? The white Muhammad Qawi. You know, he kind of remind me of him, the way he moves around. He's like herky jerky. But Usyk is definitely a fighter. Again, I think that is reminiscent of old school fighters. He's a very difficult guy, difficult style to deal with. Tyson Fury, you know, Tyson Fury got an old school style. You know, he pulls and counter. He's very good using a 1-2. He's light on his feet like Riddick Bowe and those guys were, because those guys were heavyweights, but they were, you know, nimble and agile on their feet. And I see Tyson Fury kind of having that same type of presence, when he's serious, when he's taking his craft serious. Like Fury's a really, really, really talented fighter. Just trying to go through the different. Bam Rodriguez reminds me of guys like Ricardo Lopez. Um, I'm drawing a blank now of somebody else I said he reminds me of, but he's a phenomenal younger fighter that he's only like 24 and he's already fought like 9 world champions or something. And I'm hoping him and Inoue will fight one day because I think that's the one of the biggest fights in boxing that could be had. Gervonta Davis, is another guy who reminds me of guys from yesteryears, boxer puncher, which is a rarity. To be able to box and punch. Back then, you had to learn how to do both. But yeah, that's just to name some modern guys today that kind of remind me of guys from back then. Yep. Oh, Virgil Ortiz, I like him a lot too. Yeah, he reminds me. It's weird because he has a lot of different attributes. You can see some Julio Cesar Chavez there, where the way he applies, smart pressure, cutting lanes, and know how to cut the ring off and go to the body. Yep.
Yeah. What modern fighter would have succeeded in the 17th, possibly in the middleweight category or light heavyweight category?
What boxer today would be able to fight in the middleweights in the 70s?
Yes, yes.
It's weird because the middleweight division is kind of somewhat depleted. It's not a lot of prominent middleweights right now. You had Jaminek, who I don't know if he's still fighting at middleweight, but I don't know if he would have did well in those eras. Benavidez, well, he moved on from super middle. He's at cruiserweight now. I think Canelo could have fought in any era. I think he would have held his own. I don't know how much he would have won, but I think he was talented enough to, hold his own and have some success.
Media has become one of the biggest forces in modern boxing. It can build stars, create narratives, and keep fans engaged daily. But it can also create confusion and unnecessary drama. It's an important topic in today's sport. Do you think today's boxing media help or hurts the sport?
Mm, so the media game has always been a tricky one, especially but in today's boxing, to answer your question, it helps, but it also hurts because it's a what have you done for me lately type of world that we live in, when it comes to, viewing boxing and covering boxing. If you get a loss, this is what's crazy about modern day boxing. They'll write you off. That's why a lot of these guys are very hesitant about taking fights because when you lose, or God forbid you have a close fight, they'll try to create a narrative like you're not as good as advertised. Like that's like Boots, right? For instance, if Boots Ennis, who the media is drawing parallels to Roy Jones, and they're giving him like all these praises, but if Boots don't have a good fight against Xander Zayas, they're going to say, "Oh, he was overrated," and So to your question, the media, they build you up and then they break you down, and the media is different now because there's a lot of people that has a voice in the media. So there's a lot of people. They're like back then you just had magazines that gave their opinion on fighters. Now everybody has a voice, and these fighters they see this stuff, and they get upset, So it's tough. It's tough. There's a lot to deal with.
Some fans know every champion from the past, but less about today's fighters. History has a special magic that attracts serious students of the game. At the same time, the present deserves attention too. It creates an interesting balance in boxing culture. Why do some boxing fans know history better than current boxing?
It's hard to follow current boxing. Let me tell you why it's really difficult, right? Let's take Keith Thurman for instance. Keith Thurman fought Manny Pacquiao in 2000. Oh, what year was this? I just looked it up. Okay, it was like either 2017 or 2018. Since that fight, he only fought like twice. In like a 5-year span, he fought twice. How can you follow along with something like that? Unless you're doing something like what I'm doing, where I kind of got to be in the know and looking at stuff. But if you're just an observer of the sport, you would get frustrated. So you would kind of become a casual observer because it's hard to follow these guys. Like Gervonta Davis hasn't fought since last April. So we're going on 13 months. He hasn't been in the ring. So it's hard to like follow a lot of these guys. They don't fight a lot. They get one loss and then they take time off. You forget, like, who's the last person they fought? Jamal Charlo. I don't know if he's fought in the last 3 years or 4 years. I know, speaking of Jamel, his brother, the last time he fought was Canelo, which was 3 years ago. So to answer your question, it's hard to follow along with the gaps and laws. It's too many of that. Like these guys, they just don't fight enough. So people much rather watch old fights on YouTube, and go on YouTube or go on Instagram, look at reels and kind of go from there.
What interview in boxing history would you love to have done yourself?
That's a good one. Because we had some entertaining fighters, but do it got to be a fighter or a trainer? Can it be either?
Boxer.
Boxer? Okay. That's a great question because there's a lot of great fighters, but it would have to be somebody. I'm trying to think of somebody that you don't hear from a lot, like Larry Holmes. These guys, they're always talking and giving their James Toney. They're always giving their opinion. I would probably say, and it's funny because I just saw an interview with Winky Wright. Because I haven't heard, guys like him, I haven't heard much from him. I would probably say a guy like Ricardo Lopez. I would love to have interviewed. Somebody like him would have been cool to interview.
Which boxer story inspires you the most?
Boxing story, probably Bernard. I still go, and this is not me just saying this because he's from Philadelphia. I still think Bernard got one of the most intriguing stories in boxing. Very compelling.
Social media change how fans consume boxing. Independent creators now have real influence and can reach huge audience. Directly, many pages become trusted voices in the sport. It has created a new era of boxing journalism. Have boxing pages become a new form of sports journalism?
You saying social media became a new form of journalism?
Yes, in social media.
So just to make sure I understand your question, you're saying has social media become a new form of journalism? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because people aren't reading magazines like they used to. Uh, Reels, Reels has kind of taken away journalism somewhat, where people would rather watch videos than read things. But thankfully, I've had people send me messages because I was a little concerned for people like myself that love to write, and I'm like, oh, do I need to start doing video again because are people not reading anymore? But people said no. They had a lot of people really encouraging overwhelming messages. It's like, we enjoy your reading. Please don't stop it. So I think the key is when you write, you have to be really succinct. Like, I don't think you can write too long of stuff, but just enough where people can grasp information, learn, and still be, entertained, but yet informed. So, but yeah, this is the new way of communicating. All the Ring magazine, which as a kid, that's what I read every day, pretty much, was Ring magazine. And they only issue new like articles. I forget how it went, but it wasn't like every week they issued new Ring magazines. You had to wait until things change. But now, because they can talk about old fights, they can talk about current fights, they can do interviews. They have such an expansion of topics they can dive into. So yeah, it's where we are. Everybody has to be here if you want to communicate with people. No more websites. Nobody cares about websites.
You are doing a brilliant job. I advise everyone to subscribe to you on YouTube and Instagram.
Thank you.
What is the future of boxing content on Instagram and YouTube?
I think the future will be a lot of fighters will be here promoting themselves. A lot of them are doing it where they're running their own pages. They're their own journalists, a lot of them. And a lot of them are putting out their own content. And I think that's smart. I think that they still should do that. But that doesn't mean that there still isn't room for Guard Your Grill boxing or whatever other boxing people like yourself and everybody. There's enough room for everybody to still do content and to still do boxing stuff. There's a lot of boxing fans from all around the world. And that's the thing people got to understand, that when you get on social media and talk about anything really, but we're talking about boxing, there's a big, big audience out there that you can tap into. And you'll be surprised on where a lot of your traffic come from, because it might not be from where you're from. There's people from all over the world that's going to subscribe and gravitate to your content.
Anyone who creates online eventually faces criticism. Some comments are fair, others are pure negativity. Handling that pressure is part of staying consistent. Strong creators learn how to rise above it. How do you handle criticism and hate comments online?
People will always try to, they call it trolling. You're going to have people just troll your page, looking to ruffle some feathers. I try to take the high road. I respond to everybody for the most part that comment on my page. I try to be respectful because I feel like if you take the time to write on my page, I can at least respond back to you. But again, you're going to have people that disagree with you. And like I tell people this all the time, like, we're not a band. We're not a rock band. Like, we're not all here to sing together. There's going to be disagreements. I don't want everybody agreeing with me because I'll bring up a topic because a lot of times I'm really curious to hear other people's opinions. So you can't be closed-minded. You can't be, sensitive. Once you get on social media and your page is open, there are going to be probably more people that disagree with you than agree with you. And again, like I said, you just got to take it as, you know, people enjoying what you're writing, because if they didn't care, they wouldn't comment. So that's actually a compliment to whatever it is you're putting up, that people took the time to respond to whatever it is that you're writing. But I don't take it personally. I have blocked a few people, and the only reason why I blocked them because it was like I don't want other people experience being ruined. Because there was people that was like, "Oh, I was posting on your page, but I got harassed," and you know, and those people I just blocked because my page is really for purists. Like I'm not ESPN or Ring magazine where they, you know, just anybody. I try to gear it towards it's just boxing fans on my page. So trolls, no, like I'm not gonna go there and troll that page because I'll get blocked.
You are popular content creator. You have more than 21,000 followers in Instagram. Every creator has one moment that reminds them the hard work was worth it. Sometimes it is growth, recognition, or helping people through content. Those moments become fuel for the future. They mean a lot. What was your proudest moment as a boxing content creator?
I had a fighter, and I'll share him with you. I think you asked to interview him on my page. I think you're going to do an interview with him, and he's from South Africa, and he reached out to me and was showing me some of his punch sequences and things like that, and he asked me for my opinion. And for me, as a person that has a deep love and passion for this sport, and the fact that somebody from a whole nother continent reached out to me that respected my opinion enough, because he has his own trainers, his own management, but he just trusted my eye and my insight. And I'm not going to get into what the punch sequence he was asking me about, but just wanted to get my opinion. And that was like a moment for me, like, like people are really in tune and paying attention to what you're talking about. Because sometimes I just feel like you're talking to yourself. Even though I know there's people reading and listening, but you know, it just sometimes it just feel like you're just like a echo in a cave. You're just hearing your own voice come back to you.
What goals do you still want to achieve with your brand?
That's a great question. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't know. You know, I really don't know what direction I want to go in. There's a day I want to wake up. I wake up. I'm like, do I want to get into training? Because I've been asked by many different fighters to join a camp, rather visit an advisory role, a hands-on training role. I don't know if I want to do that, but some days I'm like, am I selling myself short by not giving it a try? Um, I don't know. It's still up in the air on exactly what I want to do with this. Do I want to start doing more like video podcast type things and interviewing fighters, and so I'm thinking about getting more into that. So we'll see.
If you could interview one boxer of modernity, who would it be?
Of eternity?
Boxer of modernity, modern boxer.
Modern boxing today. I would probably say Andre Ward. Yeah, him or Bud Crawford, one of the two.
Boxing fans around the world keep the sport alive through loyalty and passion. They support fighters through wins and losses. Without them, no era becomes legendary. Their love for boxing deserves respect. I respect you. What message would you give to true boxing fans around the world?
I would say whatever area you live in, if you can and you're able, support local boxing. Because before these guys get on the zone, on all these major networks that you see them on TV, there's an infancy stage that has to get passed through first. And that's the lower level, rather it's amateur boxing too. Go support amateur boxing. But there's guys that are probably making $300 to fight, if that. Some of them on last minute notice. They got to go back to work. I've been in fights where guys take their work uniform off and get ready to fight. I would just say, if you can and if you're able, a fight ticket is cheaper than going to the cinema. It's cheaper than going to the movies. And try to support local boxing. And just, like, be fair and you object. Look, you could be a fan. Don't turn on your favorite fighters because they got a loss or two. Be supportive.
Every great platform grows because people choose to support it. Following, sharing, and showing love can make a real difference. It all helps the mission continue. Let people know where they can find you. Finally, where can people follow and support your work?
So I'm at Guard Your Grill Boxing. Simple. One word, Guard Your Grill Boxing. That's my page. That's where I'm at. Send me a direct message. Right on my page is open, and continue to support the other, boxing pages out there. There's a lot of us. There's room for all of us. When I started this in 2007, I never envisioned it getting this big, but I'm glad that, people are able to have success. Some people are able to make a living off of it. Kudos to those guys. And, to your point, support the people that's doing this too, because people put a lot of time and effort and energy into doing this. And remember, they're doing it for you guys. This isn't, crazy as this may sound, this isn't, much as it is for the fighters, it's more so for the people that follow the sport than it is the fighter, so.
Thank you, Coltrane.
Well, thank you.
For giving your time, your knowledge, and your passion to this interview. You represent the kind
Anytime.
of voice boxing needs, one built on respect for history and love for the sport. It was a real honor to speak with you today. Wishing you even more growth, success, and greatness in everything you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anything you need, send me a message on Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, my friend.
Bye-bye.